Hi folks, welcome to my 8-Bit Retro Journal. What I'm working on today is I'm taking my QL apart. So I've already taken most of the screws out. There's still one right here. The final one. When I take it apart, I like to use a small screwdriver and kind of keep track of where the screws were so that I can put it back together. But the reason I'm taking this apart, I guess before I open it up, I'll demonstrate this. Let's see if we can't reposition a little bit. There we go. So what we've got, that's a little brighter than that, is if we look at if this is the motherboard, right? It's a little dark. There we go. If that's the motherboard, we have there's two connectors in here. There's the white connector and the so the white connector kind of is on the board, sort of facing in this direction, and the other connector is right in front of it. And I'll draw this, well, it's right in front of it. It's actually facing sort of in this direction. And so it receives cables. And so for this front connector, the metal connectors are on this side, and for the rear connector, they're on the other side. And so what happens, and the problem is, so this front connector, which I'll draw in pencil since it's not the one I care about, it has a much more natural flow where it goes to an S all the way to the keyboard. It's this connector, which I'll draw in black, that maybe I'll draw the particular one in red. It comes out of this, and then it kind of gets compressed right away. Again, these are not, so this one is before the other one, and then gets sort of pushed and then creates a similar curve. And it's right here that the issue with the kink comes in regarding the keyboard membrane. The other thing that really hurts it is that for the red, the metal traces are actually on this side, and for the pencil one, the metal traces are on this side, right? So the metal traces are on this side for the pencil one, and the metal traces are on this side. And so what happens is that as this gets bent, these things get pulled apart, and that's where the cracks happen. Whereas on the one where I'm talking about the pencil mark, as this gets bent, they get compressed. So for this one that's sort of leaning in this direction, this cable tends to fail much less than the one that's in red because of this kink mark. One thing I've done on both cables is on the opposite side from where the traces are, I have put in, I've backed it with this kind of tape, which is just clear packing tape. So on the red one, for instance, there is tape on this side. And on the pencil one, there is tape on this side. And so where that gets protected, as we try to focus, can we? I guess that's as much as we can focus in on that. So you can see that on this long curve, the tape is keeping this original material from collapsing, thus keeping kinks from happening to the metal traces. And for the pencil one, it's happening in a place. So the tape on the inside doesn't really help. It's really only, if you think about the tape on the outside. As this thing is being pulled this way, the tape is kind of keeping it and holding it back. And so for the pencil marks, the tape isn't actually helping here, but this is always the biggest curve, and so there's less likelihood of any kinks happening, both for the red and the pencil mark. But it's right here that I get most of my kinks and that's so. There's two ribbons. One is wider, one is narrower. The red is the wider one. That's closer to this side on the computer. You'll see, and that's where I get my kinks. And so the tape doesn't really help, and you can't really put tape on both sides just because you need to have the stuff open on this side. Because that's where on the red one, the connectors are here. The connectors connect. So there are connectors on the inside of this that are the things that are connecting to the. It's hard to draw because I don't have do I have another color I could use? No. But the metal connectors are on this side that are connecting to the cable. But it's right here where you get the kink, and so I'm trying to solve that. So one way you could do that is you can actually add a little bit of backing, plastic backing here, or somehow if I can push this up. So what I really want is I want to change that curve from the red to the black, which would go straight up and kind of come more naturally down. So if I can create that kind of curve, then I think I'm going to be better off with regard to not having that kink. And so one way to do that is to try to add some support here so that it doesn't kink over. And there's a few ways to do this that I've thought about. You could try to add something here that pushes it up, or you could glue some. So I've already glued something on here, which is a piece of plastic that tries to give it more support so it doesn't kink up. So I've done that, but I'm looking to see if I can add some other support to get this black curve versus the red one that I have that I generally get. And again, this is true for the QL. This is true for the this is true for the ZX81. This is true for the ZX Spectrum. Anyone that uses those old ribbon cables where you have to replace it, these are sort of the things that we live with in retro computing. And so so that's so let me open this up and show you this more in detail now that I've given you sort of a breakdown of the problem. So again, the QL has 4 screws here that are the long ones, and then 4 small screws on this side. But if I turn this over, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find something to back this up so that it doesn't fall over. And I'll use the tape to kind of prop this open. So I'm going to prop this open. I don't have as much room as I've had in the past because I've already had to cut my ribbon cable a few times. I'm going to put this in here just to prop it. There we go. And you can kind of see from here. Can you see what I'm talking about? Yeah. So here you go. Let's see if I can't. There we go. So again, you can see when it's open that this cable is more naturally going in this direction because that connector is leaning in this direction. This connector is leaning in this direction. And also the metal traces are on this side, whereas the metal traces here are on the other side. And you can kind of tell because you see how this is so you can see how this is a little shinier. That's because the tape. So I have the tape on the back of the plastic that doesn't have the metal traces etched on, and so the on this one the tape is on this side. On this one the tape is on that side, and so it works. Oops, gotta be careful that I don't cause any damage here. It's a little rickety, and so so I tend not to have trouble with this. And these right here where you get the sort of the big curves, they tend to be fine. It's again right at the connection point. And here, because the thing is coming out this way, you already get this really nice, if I go back here, you already get this, again, this is the pencil one, you already get this nice natural curve. So there tends to be no kink here, but the one going the opposite direction, that's the one where it collapses down when you really want it to go straight up. So what I've done on the, I've tried to create that black line by having a little bit of clear plastic that I've taped on the inside. So unlike tape, the clear plastic gives it a little bit of strength. And I want to see if I can't do more. So one thing I could do is I have this piece of rubber which can bend and it gives you more control. Now if I can somehow fix that to that, that would be helpful. Another thing is maybe I could jam something in here, like a piece of, maybe just even a paper ball or something, to where it just naturally pushes up. The other option would be, can I have this black part connect to this somehow, rubber band or tape or something, to where these things kind of, because as the case gets put on, this and this could actually meet as this S becomes kind of over exaggerated. Like, in other words, there's not that much room here, although so the higher, I mean, obviously the higher I make this line, this thing is going to come into, this thing is going to come in this direction, like it's going to come in that, but that's fine. Again, what I want is these nice smooth curves, so that so especially if you have an old device where the membranes are hard to find, this is how you can rescue it. Another thing we could do, or I could do, is try to print some sort of 3DS device where you just somehow it clamps onto this and it just kind of forces the curve of the ribbon cable. Again, had they just, well, one thing is, if this were leaning in this direction, it would be 10 times better. Now, one thing I could look at in the future is, if I ever have to take my circuit board out, is maybe resoldering this so this is actually leaning in this direction, because then you would have a much more natural curve, and I bet it would save on that. But I don't want to do anything like that. Like I said, right now what I have is, I don't have this red curve because I have a little piece of plastic that I've taped in here, and that's helping it. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. So I'm going to have to take the camera off the tripod to show you that. So let me do that. All right, so here we are. And again, you can see that, so you can see there are cracks right here, but that's actually not part of the ribbon cable. So these ribbon cables have the original ribbon cable, and then they have a little bit of a cover, and a secondary cover that that just has nothing on it, and that's the thing that's cracked there. So that's not an issue. The ribbon cable is actually underneath this cover. I don't know if I can make it move or not, but you can kind of see how at the very bottom, you can see that the cover kind of ends. It's this one that I worry about, and you can see I've already done this, and I put a note in there so that, call it a plastic guard, and this is taped in, and so I feel comfortable that on that side it's not going to kink, but I'm not so sure on this side, on that side, whether it's going to kink or not. And it only takes one place for it to kink to use cable. So this cable here is already shorter than that cable because I've already done the cutting. But you can see this, the shiny surface is the tape that I've put on here that protects this a bit more. And the extra layer is actually on the other side. I guess maybe it's a guard to protect from any shorting or something, but it's loose. It's basically clamped on there. You see these markings on the side. That's how they clamp the second one on there. So it's not completely sealed. It's just sort of melted on the edges here, but it's loose. It's loose running all the way up the cable. So it doesn't really add any support. But the tape adds a lot of support. But so this plastic guard is, so it's unfortunately, so I'm thinking, what if I just throw a little crumpled piece of paper in there that just gives it more support and pushes it up. I mean, the other thing is, what if I
I mean, I don't want to add anything in here that would add pressure to any of the resistors or capacitors. But I was thinking if I could somehow glue this on here, tape this on here, would this give me... Now, of course, the other issue is that with this plastic guard that I have in here, it's actually shoved in down the connector just a little bit, so that it's gripping, because if it's not in the connector, then it's just going to kink where the guard ends and the connector then continues. And so this plastic guard here is actually shoved in partly into into this plastic connector. So I don't think if I use this piece, that would actually do any good, because it would just kink, you know, at the end of that. So I'm not. So I'm just kind of just checking maintenance wise what this looks like, and you can see from the side here that it has an okay curve. The curve I'm looking at, it's just hard to get this to shine a light here. Here you go, maybe. The curve I'm looking at here is this one right here. So this curve right here is the most important one right here, and it looks like it's still a nice curve here. But of course, with time and heat, this is where it gets worse. And so I'm trying to figure out, can I back this up a little bit more by okay, so I've got this piece of paper that I've sort of scrunched up. And again, what I did is, as I did this, sorry, I made it wider, and then I kind of tried to scrunch it this way, and then I tried to scrunch it this way, and then I'm rolling it. And so I'm trying to create as many little compartments or chambers in there as possible, so that there's lots of places where the paper can kind of fight back. And what I want is just this nice little compact little chamber that when I put in here, and I want it to be kind of even too. I don't want it to be lumpy. So right now it's still a little lumpy in the middle. But if I can do that, and I know that seems very low tech, but you know, if it works, it works, right? Because you're not going to see it. And if they can keep this from kinking for a year or more, then I mean, that's a success, because if the connectors were done right, this may never kink at all, because if you have the perfect S and there's no pressure on there, nothing is going to cause that to, nothing is going to cause that cable to get cracks until there's some external force. So there is an idea of a steady state. So the idea here is that I kind of push this in here, and I don't want to impact the other cable, so I'm still a little bit conscious of that. So kind of trying to compress it in this, but also I kind of want this little bundle of, it's not even a ball, it's really more of a cylinder. Yeah, so let's give this a try. Such that when we put it in here, the cable is forced to go over it. Yeah, so we're almost there. I think it's, my concern is that it's just a little too, kind of want, I know, very low tech, and it's probably not in focus, but that's kind of what I want. And then sticking this down here, if I throw this in here, and now if I close the lid, this actually might just work, because it's going to give it a little bit more support to avoid the kink. So let's give that a try. Everyone keep your fingers crossed. And unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to see it, so I'm going to just try to support this. Oops, of course I just shoved that over. And what I want is I just want to really, and then have that kind of, no, it's not really doing what I want it to do.
The problem is it's yeah, unfortunately it's actually too big. So let's actually remove some of it. So it's actually not creating that chamber. That so I just cut a piece of it off. So I want it narrower, more slender, I guess, to fit. Because I've already lost so much on the cable, I just don't think this is. I need to have the big part of the S actually fold over that, so that when I so it's give that a try. See, I mean it's there pushing it up, so that can't hurt, but it's not pushing it up all that much. So yeah, that might do it. So what's happening here is, just to give you the picture, unfortunately I tore, is that, so just to revise the picture a little bit, it's not actually like that because the cable is too short. So let me redraw the picture. I'm just going to give you a short circuit here. So what's happening is, this is getting pushed. So the piece of paper is pushing this up instead of coming down, but the paper is actually going to be on this side. And so I'm going from the sharp turn to bringing it up. And this still doesn't have a sharp turn, so that's fine. So I'm going to leave this piece of paper here to see what it does, and and see how this goes. So I can't report success right away, but maybe it'll be successful in the future. So I'll report back. But again, even just putting that little plastic support on there and that tape, if you have a membrane like that, or resoldering the connectors to be more in line with that, can be very helpful. So anyway, I'll leave it at that. I won't. I think I'm going to leave it open for a bit as I use it, so I'm not going to screw it back together, just to see if to take a look at it again in an hour or two. So that's my journal entry for today, trying to sort of support the membrane, and so some tricks and techniques that you can try that are very low tech. Anyway, thanks for joining me today, and stay safe.